Well, the day has finally come. After being leaked earlier last week, as of about an hour ago, at the time of recording, yes, it is confirmed Fortnite is getting a Bleach collab. This means Bleach skins, cosmetics, and more are all heading to one of the biggest games in the world. And it's all happening very soon, as the collab begins on the 20th of December, so I think that's next Saturday. And that timing feels very intentional too, as I can't help but notice that it should drop only a few hours or so prior to any big Bleach announcements happening at Jumpfesta this year. And what better time for Epic to capitalise on the Bleach hype than just as a trailer for Core 4 finally arrives? To be honest, I'm not actually that surprised by this, and if anything, I thought this collab might have already happened by now, considering Fortnite has featured other huge anime series already such as Naruto, Dragon Ball, Jujutsu Kaisen, and more, though curiously One Piece has never yet been featured in the game. To be fair, while I thought they initially might do something like this back in 2022, when the anime first released, I guess it makes more sense to wait and see how popular the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime turns out to be before investing like this, and what do you know, it's very popular, so here we go, just as Core 4 is on the horizon. But yeah, Bleach is up next, and to tell you the truth, I am actually fairly excited by this, regardless of how you might feel about Fortnite as a game, as a platform. This is going to be enormous exposure for the series in a genuinely mainstream way, and that's only good news. That's awesome. Anyway, I want to break down the brief teaser that we got for the official announcement, take a look at a couple of the leaks, and make some predictions as to who and what I think will be a part of the collab. So let's take a look. Before we get started, consider hitting subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, maybe not quite just like this, but if you want to see more Bleach videos every single week, then consider helping out and supporting the channel. It really does make a huge difference. And check out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games, where, to be honest, we could have made this video over there as well, but let's face it, it makes more sense right here. But either way, your support goes a very long way, and I really do appreciate it. So, earlier today, Fortnite posted a short teaser video to their official social media channels captioned with the lines, "Message received, I can feel it, something is coming." There's a good chance you'll recognise that dialogue, or some version of it anyway. It's a variation of Rukia's opening lines from the very first chapter of Bleach, as she senses a gigantic spiritual pressure in Karakura Town, unaware of course that she's about to meet Ichigo, kicking off the entire story. The teaser has no music, instead the camera pans through a grey waste littered with Zanpakuto as the wind howls in the background, in a way that I would say is pretty reminiscent of that one shot from the first Thousand Year Blood War arc anime opening. Minus all the pink, of course. We then see a hell butterfly zooming through the air before it comes to a stop on, yes, Ichigo's Zanpakuto, Zangetsu. Hilariously, I've seen a number of different takes from people who obviously aren't familiar with Bleach over on, say Fortnite's social media, for example. Some people thinking it was Cloud's Buster Sword at first glance. But no, those of us who know, we know. And it's pretty cool. Curiously though, this is Ichigo's Fullbring Shikai, which I'm personally very happy to see, as that's my favourite look for him. But crucially, this likely means that whatever cosmetics are coming to the game are probably going to be time skip aligned, though it's possible they might have additional styles too. After the Hell Butterfly lands on Zangetsu, a second butterfly approaches it, though this one is unusual. It's blue and seemingly made of glass. Well, that's because this particular butterfly is a Fortnite creation, and seems to be a variation on the game's spatial rifts that open up across the map, which in the actual game kind of do just look like patches of shattered glass hanging in the air, allowing players to teleport into the sky in order to reposition themselves. As the two butterflies touch, a bright light envelops the screen, and reveals the date of the collab, as I said, the 20th, so really not that far away. Also, as was pointed out by Neonzel over on Reset Era, this does seem to maybe be referencing the third Bleach anime opening, which, if so, is a nice little detail, to be honest. So it seems to me like what's going on here is the Bleach world is maybe being transported into Fortnite when those two butterflies collide. And what this means for how big the collaboration is, I don't know. And while it would be awesome to see a Simpsons-style map takeover, as just happened in the last season, considering Epic didn't even do that for the likes of Dragon Ball, it's very unlikely. The best we could hope for would be a Soul Society themed point of interest on the map, as I believe some of the other anime collaborations had POIs added, but again, I'm not certain. But as I said, there were some details revealed by reputable Fortnite leakers prior to the announcement, so let's take a brief look at what they had to say as well. Now, I'm not exactly clued into the Fortnite leaker space, but I'll try and credit everyone as best I can. So, I believe the existence of the Bleach collab was first revealed by a user called Sam Leaks last week, and this has then blossomed into a whole lot of different details, though thankfully none of the skins have yet been revealed. Again, I believe it was Sam Leaks who later revealed that the song, Number 1 Bankai, will be coming to the game, so that's great. Ichigo's iconic theme song will be available in-game to listen to. And you may or may not know that these days Fortnite itself is essentially a launcher that plays host to a variety of different games, including the famous Battle Royale, but also to Rocket Racing and Fortnite Festival as well, and several of these leaks come attached to the Rocket Racing mode specifically. Two separate, I guess, car designs or decals have been leaked as well, one for Ichigo and one for Rukia, and these include wheels too, and also I think like engine trails or something like that, you know, coming from the exhaust. I have no idea. Sam Leaks, who credits user Morphus17 for this find, notes that the car decal designs are based on full Hollow Ichigo and Bankai Rukia, which is awesome. But I'll go into detail during my prediction segment about what I expect to see from individual characters, though it is great and reassuring to see the Thousand Year Blood War arc being so openly acknowledged, again likely due to the timing of this collaboration lining up so nicely with whatever is happening at Jump Festa this year, which seems to be promising to be pretty big. Sam Leaks also revealed that the Bleach collab will have multiple skins, which again is great. But with that, let's get into the fun part. Let's dive into some predictions about what might be coming to the game. So, if we first take a quick look at previous anime collaborations in the game, it might help us to determine the scale of the Bleach collab. Because it seems like both the first wave of the Naruto and Dragon Ball collabs included 4 different character skins, those being Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi, and then Goku, Vegeta, Bulma, and Beerus, respectively. And in fact, I believe the same was true for Jujutsu Kaisen as well, without going and looking at all of them, but I think the first wave of that featured Yuji, Nobara, Megumi, and Gojo. So with that said, it seems very likely to me that the first wave of Bleach skins will follow a similar path. 4 characters with assorted cosmetics, but who are we going to see? Well, Ichigo is obvious, and it seems like, based on the official teaser, that he'll be wearing his full-bring Shikai outfit as kind of his default outfit, which is awesome to see. Again, that's my favourite look for Ichigo, but it's totally possible that he will come with additional styles, as I believe, characters like Naruto have done in the past. Perhaps an original Shikai look, or more likely, considering again, like I said, the timing of the event, what it's clearly supposed to be lining up with, he'll probably be wearing his Thousand Year Blood War arc outfit instead. Next up is Rukia, who again seems all but confirmed, though going into this, while I know you kind of have to have Rukia, I would have thought that maybe she was a bit too short to really work in Fortnite, but again, maybe not. Characters like Bart and Lisa, for example, in the Simpsons collab, they had to be put in mech suits because they're so small. And maybe Rukia's not quite that small, I guess, but either way. Again, she's likely to be in her post-time skip outfit, complete with vice captain badge and shorter hair, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if they work backwards this time and do include her pre-time skip look as a style as well, as I do feel like that is by far and away the most iconic and recognisable version of Rukia. Though I wouldn't say no if they want to have a bit of a deeper cut to include the Royal Realm version of Rukia too, where she's wrapped in her cloak and has her, kind of woolly hat on. But this is where things get interesting. That leaves potentially 2 more characters in the first wave, though I wouldn't say no to more either. Now, while this is all complete speculation on my part, one of these characters feels quite obvious to me, and that's Kisuke Urahara. You know, Kisuke has a completely iconic design that is synonymous with Bleach. He's from the very start of the series, and he plays that kind of shady mentor role that's also been occupied in the other anime collabs as well, by the likes of Kakashi and Gojo. Plus, Kisuke feels like a character for whom it's fairly easy to create cosmetics for, and we'll dive into that in a minute. The final character of the four is a little tougher though, as no matter who you choose, someone is getting left out of this wave. Again, unless there are more than four characters. And to be honest, there are four characters who feel like maybe the most obvious picks in my mind. That's Orihime, Uryu, Chad, and Aizen. Let's get one of these out of the way immediately. Sorry, Chad, I really think he's probably the least likely of any of these characters to actually make it in. I just think it's going to come down to popularity for the most part, and Chad's probably not going to be up there. And I simply don't think he's as iconic as a lot of these characters either, even though he is one of the main group of heroes. So it'd be great if he was there, but I'm not expecting it. Then there's Aizen, who again I think really could work here. And I think we could see him. He is very much on the periphery for me, where I think he has a kind of a 50-50 chance of making it in or not making it in. If he doesn't make it in this time, if there is a wave 2, he will be there. And then the other characters are Orihime and Uryu, who I think are maybe the two most likely to fill the fourth role altogether. Again, all of this is speculation on my part, so, take it with a huge pinch of salt. Again, they're both members of the main group of heroes. They are both around from the very start of the series, and they are both iconic Bleach characters. But to be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards Uryu being included over Orihime. Simply because, and I don't think this is like a set thing they have to work with, but there is precedent, they've done this numerous times before. Uryu fits nicely into the angsty, dour member of the group, a little like Sasuke and Megumi. Also, I think crucially, he is more popular than Orihime too, and has way more going on in the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. There's a lot of options for kind of cross-media synergy with Uryu and the 1,000-Year Blood War arc anime. You could give Uryu a really awesome Sternritter alternative style for his skin, for example, whereas I don't think Orihime's 1,000-Year Blood War arc outfit is likely to be making it into Fortnite anytime soon. So I think at the end I'm leaning towards those four for the first wave. Ichigo, Rukia, Uryu, and Urahara. There is obviously a litany of very popular characters who could be here as well, but it seems like the first wave is generally only four characters, and it's generally a quote-unquote pretty basic lineup of the very most popular major characters in the series, and I kind of feel like those four work pretty well, but Ichigo and Rukia are ultimately the only two who I think are absolutely guaranteed. Like I said, if there is one other character who I think would get in as a curveball, it is Aizen, and obviously that would be great. I mean, if he makes it in, I think he would likely replace Uryu, or again, it would just be a bigger wave. Moving on to the additional cosmetics. Fortnite has a variety of cosmetics that the team can add to represent Bleach, including some new ones for which the previous anime collaborations didn't have access to. First up, we have the back blings. Again, for those who don't know, these are cosmetics that don't do anything, but add another layer of customization to the character, and they simply sit on the character's back during play. Generally I think they tend to introduce a back bling for each character. I could be completely wrong with that. They don't necessarily line up for the character in question either. But again, I think there are some fairly obvious choices for Bleach back blings. Kon is the one that immediately springs to mind, though these days he could quite easily be a sidekick as well. I'm not a huge fan of the sidekick system. I think they've chosen a very anti-consumer way of going about it, to be totally honest, but that doesn't mean he won't be there, and I could see that happening. The same goes for Black Cat Yoruichi. I think she is way more likely to appear as a sidekick than as a back bling, but again, I could see either. Another good option for an Ichigo back bling would be the Substitute Shinigami badge, for example. That seems like a pretty much perfect fit, and I could absolutely see them doing that. Now, the next couple really depend on how niche Epic and Fortnite are actually willing to go, and I think they've gone fairly niche in the past. Like, I believe Hidan's Scythe was a cosmetic in the Naruto collaboration, which is pretty cool. But I could see Rukia having a Chappie back bling, for example, while Kisuke or Aizen could easily have the Hogyoku as a back bling to complement their characters. Meanwhile, if Uryu does make it in, an oversized Quincy Cross seems pretty obvious to me. Or even, say, one of the Sternritter medallions. I mean, that would be pretty awesome as well. And the same actually goes for Orihime, like an oversized hairpin, I think would be a great fit. Moving on to the pickaxes, which are the weapons you use to, well, break things on the map. Again, this feels fairly obvious for the most part. It would make sense for the Shinigami to all be given their respective Zanpakuto. So Zangetsu, as we see in the teaser for Ichigo, Sode no Shoryuki for Rukia, Benehime for Kisuke, or Kyokusuigetsu for Aizen, while Uryu I think just could quite easily use Sail Schneider. Someone like Orihime, that's a little more difficult, unless they find a way to make it so that she's able to wield her Shun Rika and can, fling Tsubaki, for example, to hit something. I guess that could possibly work. If the team really wanted to lean into the memes, though, which, let's face it, they're not afraid of doing, I could easily see Orihime wielding an oversized leek, and that maybe even includes a spinning emote as well. Speaking of emotes, generally a couple of series-specific emotes are added to the game with each collab. Ichigo's bankai stance seems like a very obvious pick. The iconic stance, I could absolutely see that, but aside from that, I'm not too sure. They could add something like Don Kanoji's signature laugh from his TV show, perhaps. And actually, this may be more likely than first expected, because again, thanks to Neon Zell, there was a teaser in October where in the background you can hear Orihime and Rukia pretty clearly doing the Don Kanoji laugh. So either that means they're both going to be character skins in the game and this is going to be an emote, or maybe it's just going to be an emote and it's just going to be Rukia. I don't know, but either way, this has definitely been referenced already, which is pretty cool. The emotes could honestly be something as innocuous as Rukia answering her soul pager or pulling on her iconic glove, the Gokon Teko. If a Captain Aizen skin style does make it into the game, a built-in character emote where he removes his glasses and crushes them, I mean, that would be awesome. And then when it comes to gliders, this is actually the trickiest part for me, as I can't really think of anything off the top of my head that would work really well. Maybe you could include Kisuke's portable Gigai as a kind of inflatable hot air balloon, or a winged hollow that emerges from a Garganta. It would be cool if there was a way to incorporate the Senkaimon into the game somehow as well. Now, that's more likely to be on the map itself, if they do that kind of integration. As we've seen before, characters are walking around the Fortnite map, and for example, in the Star Wars collaborations, you would enter a sort of, I guess, like a force realm or something like that, and then come out with one of the weapons. If they do that sort of thing here, that's where the Senkaimon will come into play, or a Garganta, for example. But again, all of this is just complete speculation. And don't forget, if this wave does well enough, and I have reason to believe it will do fairly well, there will likely be more. For a second wave of 4 characters, and we're just going to speed through these, but I think something like Kenpachi, Byakuya, Yoroichi human form, and Grimjo would make a lot of sense. I think that would be a pretty near pitch perfect lineup. That's when you start really diving into the secondary cast of captains and villains. But again, I could be completely wrong. There are so many characters who would work very well, to be totally honest. Again, regardless of how you feel about Fortnite, there's no denying the game still has an enormous influence. Bringing in something like 10 million concurrent players at the end of its last season. So Bleach showing up here in such a meaningful way is honestly very cool, just so long as you don't mind seeing the characters flossing. Is that still a thing? I don't actually know, but this might surprise you, but I do actually quite enjoy Fortnite, and I'll definitely be playing when the collaboration drops. I'm not really a multiplayer person per se, but Fortnite offers something very low investment that I quite like occasionally. It's not something I have to get too into, and Bleach will definitely get me to jump back in for a little bit anyway. But that's it for today's video, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. A bit of an unusual one. I was considering talking about the leaks, but I figured I would wait until an official announcement came by, and lo and behold, here it was today. So let me know down in the comments below, do you play Fortnite? If you do, are you excited for the Bleach collaboration? What are you expecting to see? What kind of characters? What kind of skins? Emotes, cosmetics, all that sort of thing. If you don't play Fortnite, could this possibly tempt you to give it a try, if for any other reason than to support Bleach and the IP's growth? Or are you still completely uninterested either way? No matter what, I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comments below, so do please let me know. Alright everyone, until next time, consider hitting subscribe if you enjoyed this video today. Check out my other channel, Mr. Tomo Talks Games, and as always, a massive thank you goes out to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon, without who I simply wouldn't be able to do this, so thank you all so very much. Your support over there especially does continue to mean so very much to me, so thank you all once again. Alright guys, until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then. Where we dropping? We dropping in Soul Society?